What up, fam? I'm Dr. DeLuna, and you are listening to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. Today, we're going to talk about all the different ways that you can welcome your baby into the world, because ultimately, you have a lot of choice. You have a lot of choice in making this big decision. So I want you to know the pros and cons so that you can decide what's best for you and your little baby. Hi, so here we are, very pregnant. I've decided a long time ago, honestly before I even was knocked up, I knew how I wanted to welcome my baby into the world. But you might have no idea. And please know that that is fine. You don't have to know right now. But if you're inching towards maybe like second trimester, you should probably start to figure this out. So I'm gonna walk you through the different ways that you can give birth. And I also want to stress, fam, that there's no right way to do this. There's no right way to do this. There's only something that is in alignment with you. So I want you to ground yourself and also check in with yourself about your biases, about this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. I want this, I don't want that, because what I've learned from my friends and my family that have done this whole birth thing before is that, your baby has a lot of decision in this, into how they want to enter the world. And that might have to do with their soul's journey, because if you believe in that kind of a thing, this baby chose you to be their mama or their papa. And they have a unique set of lessons that their soul is asking for on this planet. And that might involve being born in a car. That might involve being born on a toilet. That might involve being born via C-section. We don't know. Only baby knows. But of course, you want to feel empowered and have some sort of a plan. So we're going to talk through the different ways that you can welcome your little baby into the world and things that might make you lean in one direction or another. So first and foremost, you're either having an assisted birth or an unassisted birth. Basically exactly like the name is telling you. Unassisted, you're kind of going rogue, mama. You're having a free birth. I admire free birthers tremendously. And maybe for my second, maybe for my third, if that's something that I feel confident doing, I might go down that road, because did you know that even people in a coma will birth a baby? Like, your body literally knows what to do. You don't have to think about growing a baby. I didn't have to think about growing arms and legs or a brain or eyes. I could have tried to think about it, but it wouldn't even have mattered, because your body has this unbelievable innate intelligence that it's just gonna do it. So a lot of individuals, especially in the Southern California world that I live in, choose to do a free birth, which I think is incredibly fucking badass. I am not doing that. I have no problem sharing with you my plans. I'll share that at the end, but that is something that you could absolutely do. You could just be fully out of the medical system. You don't even have to see a doctor at all. You don't even have to take a test to show that you're pregnant. You don't have to get one ultrasound. You don't have to do any of the standard screenings. You could just let your body do its thing, birth your baby where you want to, you're good. Usually that's happening with just mama and close family, or maybe mama and a hired birth attendant, maybe a non-licensed midwife, something like that, because once you're licensed, you have some rules and regulations that you gotta live by. But you could be fully unassisted. That is amazing if that's how you want to give birth. I actually have a lot of people in my world that went that route. Highly respectable decision, highly respectable. And then you could also go assisted. That could be assisted by an OBGYN. Some family medicine doctors do something in birth, but sometimes and oftentimes family medicine doctors, they're not trained in things like C-section. So then it's more so an OBGYN, an obstetrician gynecologist, so that they know all the different things that can come up and all the different ways that they can support you. Or that would be something like a midwife. And again, you just have their support. So you're deciding if you want to do it fully rogue on your own, you and baby daddy or fellow partner, or if you want someone to help support you on the process. And there's even a whole degree of support that you can get into, because something like a midwife, they are trained in physiological birth. So they are typically supporting healthy women, and they know what is normal. They know what is supposed to happen in the body. They've seen many physiological births. They trust the wisdom of the body, and they are there to help support individuals that don't have any alarming health concerns, I would say, or any real risk involved. Because if there is a risk that you would maybe need intervention or higher level of care, you would want that in a different type of support system. So then you would want to be more so in the medical based world. And again, there's no right or wrong. There just is what it is for your unique situation that you're in, and also your unique beliefs. Because I should have started out by saying this, but the number one thing that you need to focus on is, where do you feel safe? Because for this chemical cascade of birth to take place, you need to feel safe. And if you don't feel safe at home, you definitely don't want to give birth at home. If you don't feel safe in a hospital, you probably don't want to give birth there either. If you feel the safest in the jungle, you might want to consider giving birth in the jungle, just throwing that out there. But that's something that you could start to ask yourself, where do I feel the most at ease? Where do I feel the most supported? Where do I feel the most safe? For me, it's a bathtub. So I will be birthing in a bathtub, but I don't know what it is for you, mama. I have no idea. That is the journey that you are on. So once you decide if you want to be unassisted or assisted, you can decide where you want to give birth. There's no reason why you can't birth at home, fam. There's no reason why you can't birth at home if you want to. However, if you're birthing at home unassisted, you're going rogue, right? But if you're birthing at home assisted by a midwife, and if they're licensed, they do have some rules and regulations that license will dictate kind of how they run things. So they can't do a home birth with someone that is before 37 weeks or after 42 weeks. Many states have those regulations. In California, that is one that we have. So before 37 weeks, that is a hospital birth. After 42 weeks, that is a hospital birth. That's just, it is what it is. That is the law. I don't know who makes up these laws, but that is the law. They also can't do certain things with certain type of placental disorders because there's an increased risk for something adverse to happen. So they need to make sure that you are in a safe setting, something like a hospital. Also, if you're sick, if you have something like a fever, you're gonna get transferred to a hospital. If you have diabetes, gestational diabetes, you're gonna be transferred to a hospital. If you have something like high blood pressure, a bleeding disorder, a clotting disorder, you can't birth at home with a midwife. So you're gonna be transferred to a hospital. But, you know, of the where, midwives aren't just attendants for home births. They can also be with you in a hospital. They can be with you at a birth center. So when you're trying to envision where you feel the most safe, it doesn't necessarily rule out certain providers, because there even are some OBGYNs that will do home births with you. Few and far between, but they exist. Yes, they do. So that's something that can happen for you. So if you want to birth at home, it's most likely going to be a midwife. Or maybe, if you're lucky, a really cool OBGYN, if you want that. Or you can birth in something like a birth center, which is kind of like you going to your friend's house to give birth. I think that there's this belief that a birth center almost has more things than a home birth as far as, you know, care. A midwife is going to come with a bag of all their tricks. So anything that's available to you at a birth center, aside from, like, you know, a tub if you want to have a tub, or something to hang off of if you have nothing to hang off of at home, you can have all of that at home with you. But if a birth center feels good, say that you have roommates, or you live in a weird apartment, or you just don't feel comfortable birthing where you live, no big deal. You can birth in a birth center. And there's a lot of really special birth centers that exist in this country. I'm sure there's even better ones in Europe. Holy shit, there's probably amazing ones. You can even birth with dolphins in Hawaii, says my friend John Beck. Yes, he does. But that is something that birth centers are, you know, it's like a step away from your home, but it still feels like a home. They're usually decorated really nice. They have big comfy beds, tubs, you know, it's just a different environment. If you feel like you would rather birth at a friend's house rather than your own house, that's cool too. Or, of course, you can birth in a hospital. So hospital births, if that's what you want, that is always available to you. And the pros of birthing in a hospital, first of all, if you just feel safer there, please go to the hospital. Because if you don't feel safe, your body is not going to go into the birth cascade, your cervix will not dilate, and nothing is going to happen. Because evolutionarily, if we didn't feel safe, our body would release a fuck ton of adrenaline. And what that did is it would stop the birth process temporarily. So maybe you don't feel safe at home, or maybe you don't feel safe in any environment. You need to know where that place is for you. And for many people, it is a hospital. And also, let me just say, if you're planning on doing something like an epidural, which, babes, I've never given birth. Like, who knows if I'm gonna be like 5 minutes into my natural birth being like, give me the drugs. I don't know. I'm not taking that option off the table for me. But if that is something that I want, I gotta go to a hospital because you can't do that at home. No midwife is gonna give you an epidural. You just can't do that. So depending on the level of intervention that you want is also going to dictate where you give birth. So if you know that you want any level of pain management, if you want any type of induction method, if you want any type of, just hands-on in that way, you need to be in a hospital. And hospitals are where the life-saving measures take place. So if you are choosing a hospital birth, so say this happens. You're choosing a hospital birth, but you're like, I want to be all natural. The chances of that happening are low. And I say that with love and compassion because the providers that are in hospitals, they see birth all the time, right? But they are there to save lives. They are there with these unbelievable interventions that do save lives. However, they are not familiar often with physiological birth. So they have timelines that things need to be in alignment with. And if they're not, they're gonna introduce an intervention. They are monitoring you all the time. So they might see, for better or for worse, things like D cells in a baby's heart, which can happen for a million reasons, but then that would maybe ask that they introduce something else in. You're very likely going to get Pitocin if you are in a hospital, which some people want Pitocin. They're like, get this party started. But know that you can also, instead of doing Pitocin, just do endogenous oxytocin by having some sexy time with your partner. Having them suck on your nipple. Just throwing that out there. We'll see what happens to these tits during birth. But I love making you giggle. But if you know that you want interventions, just trust that the hospital is the best bet for you. If you have any underlying health concern, the hospital is the best bet for you. If you are choosing a C-section, which again, there's nothing wrong with that. The hospital is where you want to be. So I think that it's important when you're considering, okay, there's all these different choices. Where do I want to birth? How do I want to birth? Where do I envision being the safest, the most empowered? That is what is going to guide you along this path, because a lot of people in my crunchy world feel the most empowered with little intervention. They want to go through the natural process. They want to feel that connection to this primal part of the female womb. In a hospital, that might not happen. A lot of women in my life are like, we're scheduling this baby on May 3rd. She's coming out at 1:11 p.m. because that's my favorite angel number. And she is going to be born by C-section to save my vagina. That is fine. You can also do that. Something that I also just want to stress on is that whether you're birthing at home, birth center, hospital, you can have a doula. And I would highly recommend a doula because all the providers that I just mentioned, essentially they're to protect you and to protect baby. But you need support. Yes, you do. Because again, never have I ever done this before, but I hear that you kind of leave your body and enter this like birth vortex of sorts. So you don't want someone coming in and being like, hi, do you want X, Y, or Z? You want someone there that knows what you want, that knows what you're in alignment with, and can just fill in those gaps. Also for me, I'm gonna be birthing at home. So I need someone to like walk my dog, someone to like make sure that I'm fed, someone to rub my back and sing sweet songs to me, and do whatever it is that I need in the moment. So a doula is there to kind of just control the environment, to hold the space, to hold the container. And that could be any space that you want. They can follow you anywhere. So say you do get transferred to the hospital because something happens, your doula can and should come with you. And essentially your doula is someone that you've talked about in depth what your birth vision is, what you want, because then they can advocate for you in this space where you might not feel like you have a choice. They can help. They can be that voice for you while you're in the birth vortex. And I really do want to stress to you, fam, that you do have a choice. Even if you choose on birthing at home or birthing in a hospital, you have choices. You have choices on the level of intervention you get, on the testing that you get, on everything. And I think that sometimes when we are in certain situations, especially if you've never done it before, right there with you, you almost give up your power because you're scared. And if there is something that you feel strongly for or against, you want to be able to advocate for yourself. But that's also why the doula is amazing, because they know. They've walked you through it, you've talked through it, they've seen and supported lots of individuals in the birth process, and they can be that support system for you, which I think is really key. So overall, you can choose how you give birth. And, you know, I started off this whole thing by saying that your baby is this unique soul that is going to choose how they come into the world. So even though you have this idea, you have this birth plan of what you want, I think it's really important for you to have some flexibility, because you can have wants, but it might not be what you need. It almost, as this veil starts to thin and as I get closer and closer to meeting my daughter, it almost feels like I'm getting ready for an ayahuasca ceremony or something. Because, you know, you can go into some type of portal like that and be like, I want to heal my inner child, or I want to do X, Y, or Z. And then the medicine is going to be like, well, this is actually what you need. Or to get there, this is actually what you have to feel. Or this is what you have to heal. And when you're in it, sometimes it's just a mind fuck. But then after, you're like, well, that was the medicine that I needed. So that is also something that I think you just need to be open to. I don't think it's a good idea to be very stuck and rigid in something that's supposed to be very fluid and feminine like birth. However, I do think it's important for you to connect with your values and almost just your power in, I want to feel a certain way during birth. I want to feel at peace. I want to feel love. I want to feel in control. I want to feel, you know, empowered. I want to feel supported. I want to feel at ease, whatever it is, rather than it has to happen this way, that way, or else it has been a failure, or else this birth is now traumatic. And this is coming from someone that's never done it. And I am well aware of that, mamas that are listening to this, that are second, third, fourth, fifth, ninth time moms, but it's just something that I feel strongly about. And to be honest, I plan on birthing at home. I've got a midwife. I've got a doula. My partner will be there. My dog will be there. I feel the safest at home. I want to birth in my bathtub. I want to connect to my body in a way that I never have before. I want to feel what all my ancestors have felt. I want to feel the sensations. I want to have the hormonal dance that takes place with natural birth, which sometimes can be, you know, stunted by things like Pitocin, and different types of like pain management modalities. I want to do what my body can do. And with that being said, I've done a lot of mental exercises of what if that doesn't happen? What if something scary comes up and I have to be transferred? Am I going to resist that? Am I going to feel like a failure? No, I'm not going to. If I have to get a C-section, so be it. Send it. That's actually the only surgery I've ever fainted in. In all my medical training, the only one I've ever dropped to the floor in was a C-section. So I don't think the universe is going to do that to me, but you know, we'll find out when I share my birth story with you in a couple weeks, because we're almost there. So there's so many choices that you have. Please choose what you want. Make sure that your partner's on board. Have the hard conversations. Don't let anyone's judgment come in. It's not their baby. It's not their birth. And it's definitely not their body. So they have no say. But you do. Being open to what your baby chooses, but also feeling strong in your center to choose what you feel is the most in alignment with you and your soul, right? So I hope that you learned a little something today. I hope that you feel how open I am to you choosing however you want to welcome your new little bestie into the world. And for all the mamas listening along to this, know that I love you and I'm here for you. I'm here literally with you. Something that is really cool that I learned in a birth class is that when you are giving birth, there's, I don't know the exact number, but hundreds of thousands of women on the planet giving birth at the same time, which is kind of monumental. So you are never in this alone. And there's no right way to give birth, only way that you feel safe and your baby is protected. Thank you for being here. Can't wait to share my birth story. Can't wait to learn about yours. See you later.